to another masking and bemoaning spooky edition. Also sans mask, because as I've been doing these for Halloween, I have not been actually putting a mask on my face or doing any skincare, but I did do a full little beat, and you can see all that information in the bottom. I'll put down what I have on my face, because that's not what we're talking about. Hi, I'm Nessie. Welcome to my channel. You know, thumbs like, subscribe. And today, you know, since we're doing a spooky edition, this is whatever of 10, because I'm doing 10 videos about horror movies because we're in spooky season. All right, so or Halloween theme, because nothing's really been scary, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Okay, so today we're going to talk about Madres, which is from, and you know, I always have my template, notes, all that. So if you see me looking down, that is what I am doing. And this is also going to be in a playlist if you want to go back and watch other things I've talked about. It will let you know which section this is if you are not interested in spooky movies. I've also reviewed other things, so there are other videos. All right, so like I said, we're going to be doing Madres, which is, and we basically cover that everything gets covered in about 8 or 9 questions. It depends on the media, because the last question is kind of the final thoughts, and or if there's any remaining questions after what we see. You may not always have that as a question. Sometimes it's straightforward, just like I just did the Muppets. There's no lasting questions about the Muppets Haunted Mansion. It is what it is. You see what it is for, and that's fine because it's kid friendly. So getting into it, but anywho, Madres is one of the offerings from Amazon Prime this year in collaboration with Blum House. It is an hour and 24 minutes long. There are no familiar faces from what I see, even though the cast is predominantly Latino. I don't want to say that everybody is Mexican, but they are at least all Latino, Hispanic. That I'm not familiar, because that's a whole film industry on the side, so I may not have seen them in more mainstream popular Western films. And when I say Western, I mean the Western world, not necessarily, you know, boom boom bang bang, you know, Dirty Harry films, but I mean like from the Western world. Even though if you're Mexican, because it's like the characters in this are playing Mexican American characters, then that's the Western world as well, but you see what I'm saying. Okay, so the gist of it is that a Mexican-American couple, their name is Diana and Beto, that's really the only 2 people you really need to know, are expecting their first child, and they relocated to a migrant farming community in the 1970s in California. It is worth mentioning that Diana is originally from LA, or kind of the surrounding areas of LA, so she's not used to being out in the country like this, and she cannot speak Spanish, which we'll get into. She's not fluent in Spanish, though she's learning. When the wife begins to experience strange symptoms and terrifying visions, she tries to determine if it's related to a legendary curse or something more nefarious, which really that is just the best summary. That's one of the best summaries of the horror movie. That kind of tells you everything that is going on. So yeah, like I said, and also it's worth mentioning that Beto is straight up, he's from Mexico, so he's not even a Mexican American, or he's been neutralized, but he has not always lived as an American. It's also brought up that Diana cannot speak fluent Spanish because her parents were ridiculed and, you know, discriminated against because they spoke Spanish, because they are Mexican. It is also worth mentioning that Diana is lighter than Beto. He is more indigenous looking, I guess that's what I would say, because he's definitely darker than her, and she's, you know, one of the lighter people in the community. It's also brought up that her parents were like they are mad, not necessarily mad. Her mother was saying that, you know, the only thing that she really had a hope for her daughters is that, because she does talk to her sister throughout this. Her sister's not really important because her sister never actually shows up until after the baby is born at the end. But that the only thing her mother wanted for her to do is to, you know, have white skinned babies, even though she is very fair. She's fair in comparison to the rest of the community. And find a good husband so she doesn't have to work. So she ends up, you know, going against that because she, one, has a journalism degree. Actually, at the beginning of this, you find out that Diana was, you know, let go of her position. So, but she was doing investigative journalism. I think part of it's because she actually got pregnant, and then Beto had this opportunity to go work on this farm. Not only be a worker, he's the supervisor, so this was a big deal for him. He also brings up that, you know, he comes from a long line of farmers in Mexico, but he has no one in the family had ever been, you know, the head cheese. So, but the thing about this community is that people are losing their babies. They were trying to blame it on the pesticides and all that kind of stuff, which is worth mentioning because, yeah, that is still a thing. So they're but all the women were losing their babies, but the men never got sick. And that's the thing. It's like everyone would always, you know, we're eating the same thing, we live in the same house as this, that, and the third, and they're the only ones getting sick. It does seem like Diana, because she is just in the house by herself all day because she's nesting, and because they just moved, like I said, they just moved in. They have just gotten this house, which it used to be a whole family. The previous owner, the wife, had died in childbirth. Like many of the other women, either that they can't have any more children, or they were dying in childbirth, or, you know, or they couldn't get pregnant at all. So that's what's been happening in the community, but they were saying it's some kind of curse. But this is people's livelihood, so people are not, you know, moving away. And if you do not have the money, it's not so easy to move from place to place. You know, they probably just got enough money to come here and work, because they do have a they have a nice house, Beto and Diana. Of course it's an older house, but like it's pretty big for just them, and then the other houses around the community are kind of in the same area. It's not like, you know, a haunted mansion situation or anything like that, but it is like a nice size house. There's, you know, and other things on the property, but like weird things start to happen. Diana starts to see things. She starts that the medicine woman, whose name is Anita, keeps telling her that, you know, I need to help you with this. You need to wear this because of the curse, this, that, and the third. You need to drink this certain agua fresca because that's supposed to help with the baby that's pushed by Tomas. That's the like overseer of the community. And there's only one hospital, which is ran by white people, and it's not even in the same town. So there's one doctor, there's one nurse. Both of these people are white. That is all relative. Okay, so it turned, and then of course with all this, and then Diana, being that she is, you know, a college graduate, she has worked out in the field. She's a modern woman, even for the 70s, and she does not believe all this hocus pocus. She does not believe all this mess. And she's like, you know, it's got to be a scientific explanation for what's going on. Because even she has had some bleeding. She was, you know, some food has made her sick. So she was just like, you know, and if it's the pesticides or whatever, you know, we need to tell everybody. Like Betsy, and like even her husband's like, you being crazy, you know, they already don't want you in, because, you know, she is called a gringa at one point in time because of how light she is. She does not speak Spanish, and she's from the big city. So, you know, they could kind of take her like she's trying to think she's better than other people, but that's just not it. So she has a hard time relating to people there. She, like, the only other person she knows for real is her husband, and she's isolated. So just weird things start to happen. She gets taken into the hospital several times because, one, she's had bleeding. Two, she's fallen before, but nothing that was damaging the baby. But, you know, she starts to get she starts looking through articles. She starts looking through it starts actually when she starts going through the boxes of the couple that had lived there before, of the wife that had died, because the wife does appear in like an apparition to her, because she really is just trying to get justice. But she was just like, I want to know if it's a curse thing or if this is, you know, a science thing. And then it does turn out, so the gist of it, after all that is said and done, after she starts getting her investigative journalism on, because, you know, even when she talks to the doctor, she's like, you know, what did the previous doctor say? Because he said that he didn't know anything about these other deaths, stillborns and infertility in the community and stuff like that. But he was like, cause you know, the previous doctor didn't leave any notes. Now, come on, really? It was just like, and you didn't think anything is up with that? Like, everybody in this community was this, that, and third, you know, had this going on. It's only affecting the women. Rah rah rah. So she gets to looking, because she's been in the hospital several times. It's a little town. She gets to looking into boxes and cases and all this kind of stuff, because she looks at news clippings and all this, putting that journalism degree to work. So she comes across as that the doctor who said he didn't know anything had been sterilizing these women, and that is why either they were, you know, being completely infertile, they were losing their children, they could only have one child, or and they would be perfectly healthy going into it. So yeah, this, that, and the third. And then of course, because she discovers, you know, the nefarious plan of this doctor, because apparently, you know, eugenics is a thing. So he is on that wave, and this was really happening during the 70s. There is an actual case, and they talk about it at the very end of the movie, that migrant women, the wives and mothers of this migrant community that came up to work, they were basically being sterilized in California at this hospital. So they took them to federal court. Of course, they did not, they didn't win their case, and the person that did it only did like a year of jail. But they still were able to practice medicine, and that was in the 1970s. This also, you know, this has been going on through history. So that basically, if you know anything about eugenics, it was just like the betterment of the race and all this, that, and third. When they say the race, they mean the white race. And that's the basis for the Holocaust. That is the basis for Manifest Destiny, all this kind of thing going on. That was started in America. So yes, it was a whole movement, like scientific papers, everything. So yeah, she discovers that, and of course, you know, we've got to kill her now, because she knows all of this. It was like, well, you could just live well enough alone. You should just let you lose your baby. And then so she's like strapped to the table. The doctor tries to administer her something to, you know, kill her, because she found out the truth. I do also think, though it's not clearly said, is that the lady that lived there before her, that lived in her house previously, who is actually haunting her, but she's haunting because she wants somebody, she knows that Diana has these skills to actually get this word out. So she is haunting to, you know, get some kind of justice. And, you know, after Diana, you know, connects all the pieces, and now she's on this table about to be assisted by this white nurse, who, you know, is like, you know, trying to knock them out and administering drugs, and they don't know what it is. And then they would get the women, this is how they avoided the legality of it, is that they were getting the women while they were drugged up to sign these consent of sterilization forms. So, but that wasn't gonna happen for Diana, because Diana discovered the truth. She knew all of what was going on. So, you know, she got to get them up out of here. Of course, Beto, you know, busts in and tries to, you know, save his wife. He wrestles the doctor. The doctor stabs him with a scalpel, and, you know, but not enough to kill him. So they tussle, and he kills the doctor with the scalpel. Then he gets shot in the middle of the hospital by Tomas, who was the overseer, like I said, and he was in it with the doctor, and he was like, you know, insert, you know, racial slur, y'all just don't learn, and you can't leave well enough alone, and this, that, and the third. Everybody needs to know their place. And then but Diana, you know, gets, because Beto does loosen her up, so she is loose enough to get off of the bed, and she basically kills Tomas protecting them. And then yeah, that's the gist. And they have their baby. She doesn't get any kind of things that are harming, but we never do get a follow-up, which it's not meant to. It's not enough time. We never do get a follow-up on, you know, what goes on with the community going forth. Is there any kind of lawsuit? But we do get the actual statistics of things that are actually happening and how people are still being, you know, forcibly sterilized. You know, and as that was one of the issues that was happening when, you know, when ICE was holding people at the border and had them in those detaining people at the border and had them in those detention centers, that they were forcibly sterilizing women. So, you know. And then of course there's throughout it, when the doctor finally reveals his nefarious plan, it's all kind of, you know, racist eugenics talking points, you know. Y'all ain't got enough money, he messing up race, blah 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 blah. Boom. All right, so that is the gist. I know that was kind of rambly, but I just kind of just threw all that in. Okay, how scary was this on 1 to 5 spooky scary skeletons? I'm gonna give it a 4.5. Although some people didn't like that because it was relating to the real world, but that's what makes it so scary, because this is something that is actually happening. It's more scary for, you know, someone like me and other, you know, non-white people, because, you know, they have done this to people of color and black people throughout history, and it's still goes on and continues. So that's why it's always a surprise to me where people are like, well, why don't people trust the government or doctors? I was like, because history, beloved. That's why. And so, you know, real life horror is way more scarier than anything that can be shown in any kind of movie or any kind of form of fiction. Real life horror is much more scary. That's what made like Final Destination so scary. That stuff seemed very real. But also it's well acted and all that kind of stuff. And yeah. Is it family friendly? No. Because it's dealing with a lot of the language, and that there are some parts, it's not necessarily I wouldn't say gory, but it's you know, I mean, like, it's birthing and children and all that, so there's kind of disturbing things going on too, but most of for language and disturbing things, lots of blood, because you are dealing with giving birth. Okay, and is this a good movie, and is it worth your time? Yes. It is a good watch. It does start off kind of slow, but you need to build up that kind of intensity of it, that like, and I would also say that this, if you have had any kind of fertility issues or had any kind of detainment, this is definitely going to be triggering for you, so you might want to be mindful of that. Also, it is worth watching, of course, after you get past up to actually see that it's actually a real life thing happening. Like, she's not crazy, she's not out of her mind. She's being haunted, so there is a supernatural element, so I did like that, but just, it was well done. Also, I did like that a good chunk of this was in Spanish. You did have to read a lot of subtitles, because I, for one, am, while I have taken Spanish through high school, I had to take some in college, I am not fluent, not conversational in Spanish, so yeah. But yeah, it's definitely worth watching. I did not feel like any time was wasted. I would say this is definitely this movie gets an A from me, from the way that it's done, because even though it's not really horror, it's a good movie overall. So yeah, final questions, I don't have any. This was kind of straightforward. The only thing I would want is just a follow-up on the community after, but I do like that they basically put in real world events in the end to let you know just what happened with similar cases and the follow-up up to now. So yeah, because obviously they taped this in 2020 and it's just not coming out in 2021. So yeah, and as it stood then, it was still an ongoing issue. I remember when it first came up in the news that they were sterilizing people at the border. So yeah, hate to be a bummer. This is not a, you know, this is not a feel-good situation. It just kind of is what it is. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope this wasn't too rambly. Tell me what you think. Did you have any questions? How did you like this so far? You know, thumbs up, like, subscribe. And remember that Nessie loves you. Bye.